Alright, so this video will be, hopefully I can make interesting. Probably not. It's going to be like my feelings on pipeline in the game industry when it comes to substance designer and different uses of substances. And kind of the way you can adapt it and how it's not just a program that does one thing, it's a program that does a whole lot of things. I think someone who summed it up really well, Jared Everson, the guy that did the helper bot that was featured on Algorithmic's website. He's a big poster on Polycount. He said, I love to see, this is an exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, I love to see other people's conclusions and the way that they use Substance Designer, because there's so many different ways. And it's very true. There's a lot of different ways. And one of the things that always seems to happen when I start talking to substance designers, the first thing people are like, oh, well, I don't use PBR in my game. Substance designer obviously doesn't just use PBR. It's a workflow enhancer that you can integrate whatever you want. You guys have looked at the materials and the shaders and saw that there's more than just PBR. You can do standard, spec and gloss and diffuse. You could just do diffuse normal. You could just do, whatever you need to set it up for. So different uses of substance designer. Some of my thought processes is no way 100% correct. These are all my opinions. And I'll also be showing you other people's opinions, hopefully, at some point. So some people's opinions. Not some people's opinions. My opinions. After lunch food coma and warm Dr. Pepper. It's going to mess up my speak. All right. So the most obvious one that people usually go with is just creating flat textures. Now, let's get rid of 3D view. Now, why is this great? Well, it's great automatically just because it takes away needing to use things like cgtextures.com and like needing to have really good source images. Now you're creating your source images. Not only are you creating the source images, you are going to be making images that you can manipulate based on what you need, so you can get a lot more out of it. So many times, for artists who've been in the industry a while, you're busy sampling, trying to color correct a source image, trying to get lighting information out, all that kind of stuff. This takes away that, because you can get a flat image with just the information you need, with just the layers you need. You can separate it out how you need it. You don't have to worry about masking out certain things when it comes to the end user obviously using it. In the case of, look at this brick real quick. This comes in Substance Designer's extra pack you can get. What is it called? I don't know. It's like the extended pack. But as you see, simple, cool looking bricks with some moss growing in between. But you can change, so much with it. I don't know what these sliders do. We're gonna find out. So like saturation. So we can change right there. We can get some different looks. Contrast. Here we go, brick amount. So right there we can change the look of our bricks. As you notice, the moss is updating with it. One sec. So right there, that's dynamic. You can get a lot of work out of this. So if this is a particular moss in your game that's going to be all over a level, you can have it integrated into a bunch of different nodes that then makes it so everything has coherency. So you can have different bricks. You can have, aging. I don't know what this does. Okay, so how rough the bricks are. I mean, that there is cool. The other cool thing is if you take these nodes and integrate them directly into your engine, like Unreal does, like Unity does, your world builders or environment artists can change this stuff on the fly. So they can have really nice bricks, tiling through, and then all of a sudden, as they go outside, they're a little rougher, and it's not going to cost you a full new texture set to do this. This is incredibly powerful and very handy, and really the first thing that most people think about with Substance Designer is just creating these types of textures. And yeah, these base textures are great. You can obviously push these further. You can push them as far as you want. You can make them as simple as you want. You can make them artistic. There's people on Polycount and on Algorithmic's website that does hand-painted looking nodes and things. So you can push this as far as you want. Next up, kind of a twofer, I guess, is you have generators, which... So generators, yes, obviously you'd use generators like this to create things like bricks. But this alone, you can create tiling things for things like, this is a very simple generator. Here's the actual weave generator. Like if you just need a height map for ZBrush, or you need to take this in another program to overlay, you can create a certain pattern very simply to bring into another program to paint with, to use as an overlay, to use as a normal map, to use as a height map. And they make it really easy to do. Yes, Photoshop does this. You can make patterns through Photoshop, but honestly, it's a little clumsy in my opinion. I haven't used it a lot, but every time I've had to use it, it's been kind of frustrating. Versus with this, I know that it always tiles left to right, up to down perfectly. It always, I have simple sliders where I have quick visual updates right off the bat. I don't have to worry about Photoshop compiling anything or thinking about anything. And so I enjoy it. Not to mention what I mentioned, like if you hit space, bitmap, from the resource, and we make these, and we can paint left to right. So you'd start creating, your texture, and then you can start painting on it as well, and it tiles. And that's very important in the game industry when it comes to making environment artists, when it comes to making environment pieces and like floor tiles, you need them to tile seamlessly. And that's one thing I love, even just about the black and white generators, just being able to get that information to use in other ways. Doesn't mean you have to use it in Substance Designer, but you can create it in here and take it into other things. Next thing, also, like I said, that's why these kind of go together, because these are things that work internally as well. But the mesh adaptives, it takes the edge off a lot of things for artists that usually are quite annoying. Really, not annoying, but time consuming. Like, all right, do edge wear along this entire thing, and you'd sit there in Photoshop in your brush and edge wear all the way along. This helps speed up the process. It doesn't mean it's the end all. It doesn't mean it looks exactly right, but it can get the artist there, a start, and then he can go back and bring it into Photoshop, like I was saying, or another program into Substance Painter and edit them further, so on and so forth. Lastly, yes, the template nodes. Now, this kind of uses all of this as well, right? So this is combined with all of these, because usually you have this type of stuff as your base node, and you have these working inside of here to manipulate your base colors. But I don't want to exactly think about it like that. I'm going to explain the template node about how I saw it. So I didn't like going with the route of having completed base nodes at the front end of the texture. So if we go ahead and open base substances here, let's open the template node. Give it a sec. Sorry, I should have opened this, but while I'm talking here, I'm thinking about it. So here. So none of these have actual information in it. They're just the PBR values that I want for each type of material. Now, why did I do this? The reason why I chose to do it this way and not in the way that like Quixel's doing it or in the way that other people are doing it, I explained before the time problem of it. When you have this many materials, the calculation time becomes really horrible. If you look at this, 0.34 milliseconds to calculate this one node, versus if we go back to that graph we were just in. If you look at this brick, 579 milliseconds. Yes, it's a lot larger. But if you're working at that, so that would just be one material. Yeah, you times that by 17, like in the other graph, you're now wading through, a tar pit of calculations. So but that's not my main reason, because you can obviously do this for a smaller graph. You can have more complex beginning base substances. My main reason was because seam lines. Seam lines and how something is constructed was my other reasoning behind it. So if your artist put as much information as they can in their AO and their normal map, using things like the weave generator for cloth, things like, maybe they need to do something else, but yeah, using like the weave generator to make some cloth, or they need a specific pattern to go a certain direction. If they at least sculpt that information in, you can make it so Substance Designer takes that information in, like the normal map and the AO, the directional map, and then adds different wear and tear and effects on top of it. This helps guarantee there's no seam lines in a prop or an asset, and also helps, to me, unify everything across the board. Now, are there downfalls to it? Yes, there's downfalls to all of these methods. Like I was saying, time for this, these don't really have a downfall because these are more utilities. For this, it takes a lot of time to set up, and it's also very restrictive for a template because what you allow people to have access to in the template's all they have, but that's kind of the point of it. So, back to what I was saying. So, I think this method here, the template method, is great for props and characters, and not so much just like ground floor things, more environment pieces, I guess you could say. For those, yeah, just make simple ground textures and things like that. For prop and things, you're looking at so many seam lines, so many places where you have to think and catch cases, that to me, leaving the base template, the base colors as blank as possible and building on top of them was the smarter way to go. Again, this is my opinion. So I also had mentioned the construction of something. So when you make something, Substance Painter would be a good example of this. But when you make something or manufacture something, it's going to get dirty the same way. It's going to get chipped the same way. If you drop something on the ground and it chips, it's going to, chip on multiple materials in the same area. The problem with a lot of these base substances I see people make is there's so much information in them that it causes a lot of disjointed look, because the wear and tear on one piece doesn't make sense to the wear and tear and the information on another piece. So that was the other reason why I didn't really want to go that route, because there's such subtle information you can put in that it almost didn't make it worth it. If you wanted to make it look right, you could subtly put like some cloud noise and some breakup, but you can do that later on over the whole mesh. But these are all things to think about when thinking about how you're going to be using this in a pipeline. You can simply only do like something like the base graph for your pipeline. Let's say you don't want to worry about the generators or anything. All you need to do is make sure all the artists are using the same values, and then they can overlay whatever they want on top of that. Alright, so there you go. You could just take it as far as that and be done. Let's say you need to have them, you need to make sure that all the ambient occlusions are overlaid the same way and all the cavity maps are overlaid the same way. Again, you could do that in here, make sure it's very controlled using a template. So the other thing is that makes all of this stuff pretty awesome is the iteration possibility. So with this, like I showed you, so let's say you sat here and painted all of this and you had this giant Photoshop layer, all these different colors and everything, and all of a sudden your art director was like, you know what, I really wish those bricks were just a little bit wider, Well, that's days of work and changes for you, which your art director might just say, well, you already did it, so, leave it that way. Well, in this case, you can actually quickly be like, all right, there you go, they're a little bit wider, does that work? And they could be like, yeah, and look at that, you just updated it that quick. Same with the prop stuff. With using a template, they could be like, oh, I really needed this to be a different color. You could go into the base color, change the base color on the fly with a visual, an automatic visual change in the 3D view. Your art director or art lead could be like, all right, that looks right now. All right, awesome. You can save it. You're done. It's very quick on iterations. If you have it linked to your Photoshop file, you update your Photoshop file. Let's say you need to update a mask, or they're like, you know what, you should have masked this a little bit differently. You can update it in Photoshop really quick, save it, and then it automatically updates in here, updates all of its nodes for you. The iteration is so handy, and that's actually what I hear from a lot of artists who use it, is that they love how fast they can iterate. They can get the ideas. Now, are either of these methods the end-all, be-all, 100% done? No. This is still automated in the end of the day. All of this is automated. Honestly, does this look completely like real brick and real moss? No. It looks generated. Is it close? Yeah. Are people that aren't artists going to notice? Probably not. They're going to be running around a game and not paying attention that this isn't real moss and this is just color with a noise, like a Perlin noise or something that's creating this. Um, but it's going to get you 80% of the way there, 90% of the way there in some cases, or it could just get you like, yes, it's 90% of the way there. We don't have time to put any more time into this. Get it done. It's done. So just keep that in mind, that this is never going to be, in my opinion, the end all. There will still be something you need to take into Photoshop, something you need to take into Painter, and add that artistic touch, add that artistic flair. Because this is procedural. Procedural equals just that, things looking the same. And sometimes that's not what you want. Sometimes it is. So like I said, take a look at other artists. I'm going to go over some of them that I follow and look at. Again, I'm horrible with social media, so I don't usually post on these things. And I'm sorry if any of these artists don't want to be mentioned, but I'm going to give your YouTube channels a shout out anyways. So we have Christoph. He's great for Substance Painter. If you go to videos here, he's been featured on Algorithmic as well. He did the characters in Substance. He did, let's see, what's another one he did? Oh yeah, the Iron Man one. You'll see on a lot of things. He does some great work. He's funny to listen to. I love listening to him at work while I work, and he does a good job. But if you watch videos like the Substance Designer, Look Dev, and how he textured this Iron Man, again, it's a different way of thinking, and it's really cool. How he rendered out a character flat, and then did it so he can iterate very quickly and change the color and make sure that everything was going to relatively look the same on like a turnaround and things like that. It's just genius. But it's a different way to think. Someone else, Arvin. He has some great tutorials on his website or on his YouTube about creating generators, like we were talking about, mask generators with different patterns and things like that. James Sky, another good one with generators that I've watched a few times and got some ideas from. This one, was it Ragillo? I hope that's right. This rock tutorial, how he made this is amazing. Like, talk about something that is really handy to use, really quick, looks very real, but it's one node that creates hundreds upon thousands of different rocks and overlays and grounds, and you can create so many tiles for your game, for your project, just from this one node. It's props to this guy. It's some cool stuff. He has some other really cool stuff as well. Joshua Lynch, he has some cool stuff on Polycount. He has a lot of tutorials right now. I'm in his tutorial section on his website. I don't know where exactly his Substance tutorials are. He has them within the Polycount forum, and I think he might have them on an Algorithmic forum as well. But cool stuff that Josh has. He has some cool ways of thinking of stuff as well. Some really cool, like how to mask out cracks, and I really like his subway tiles that he did. But again, another cool way of looking at things. And then we already talked about Jared. He did the robot. He's probably the only one other than me showing templates for characters and props. I believe, at least that I've seen recently. So there goes some ideas, or some other artists to look at, and I thank all of these artists for giving me inspiration and stuff to work on at work, and helping me figure out problems. I had something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, so for all of this that I'm showing, it's not a make art button at the end of the day. There's still a lot of time that goes into making these nodes, and as an art director, as an art lead, you need to realize this. Most of these pipelines, like if you create a full template pipeline or a full base substance pipeline, you're looking at, it could be 6 months of development time for an artist to sit here and create this system. But once it's in place, it's there. It's there for life, and you can update it very quickly. You can change things. You can iterate. It's very, very good time spent. To iterate that, let's talk about how it affected for us. So for our weapons are very complex. I don't know if I have a weapon handy. Let me see. Test. So our weapons come in different components, 4 components to be exact. And I'm going to let you guys into a little secret so you guys can have this ammunition when trying to convince, people who are more interested in numbers. So for our weapons, I really don't know where my weapon is. Our weapons are 4 parts. Let me pause it real quick and find it. Alright, found the gun. Emissives are messed up because I made this back when they didn't have an emissive node. Now they do. So now it's trying to run it and it looks like poop. So there goes one of our guns. So as I was saying, our guns are broken up into 4 parts, as you can see here. We have receiver, barrel, underbarrel, overbarrel. This is so we can component things, upgrade things, make them look different. So for an artist to fully texture, let's say one of these weapons, you're looking at, a few days per piece. Not exactly per piece, probably a day a piece, maybe 2 days. To polish it, make it look nice. You have to remember we also have a first-person view, so we do have to put some love into it for when the gun actually goes into a first-person view. So it can be very time-consuming, not to mention you have to try to match each piece. And when you're dealing with multiple upgrades, multiple weapons, you're looking at thousands and thousands of textures and man-hours. So in the case of this stuff, we did some of the quick math. We had, in that user story I have on algorithmic, there we go, it talks about how we needed to do 1,000 textures within the time, within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think it was. And that's actually not accurate. Actually, when I sat down and did the math, it was actually like 3,700 and something textures. It was a lot of textures. And based on that, you're looking at, like I said, a day and a half, 2 days, per texture. So we equaled it out to be about 3 days per gun, 3 to 3.5 days per gun. And that came out to almost over a year worth of man hours to do all of the gun volume we needed to do. All right. Bring in algorithmic, bring in substance designer, what we did. So the template, this weapon template, spawned off the Accord template. But that took me, so between learning the Accord template and then making this one, you're looking at about 6 weeks of my work. So 6 weeks of my work to get all of this pipeline up and running. It was something like that, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. To get all this up and running and working and at the basics, yeah, there's still some stuff that needs upgraded, and this isn't the perfect example because this one has been kind of an example model, so it's been changed and isn't quite as refined as some of the other ones. So it took me 6 weeks to do that. And then based on how fast, so basically our pipeline was, you'd bring in the receiver, which is the main part of the gun, the main body. You set up the receiver, get it looking how you needed it to look with the texture map. Here goes our texture flat over here. And then you would literally take this, Control-C, go into your next gun. So you're like, all right, now I need to do the barrel, paste it, reconnect, make any small adjustments you needed to do, move on to the next part. So all of a sudden, you were taking something that was going to take 3 days and taking it down to 30 minutes, an hour. Not to mention if you have a whole bunch of guns based off of this, so a bunch of upgrades. Upgrades is once you do one of these upgrades, you can then copy that node and just reconnect, make small adjustments, move on, take it into Photoshop, do any final tweaks to it, and be done. So that's what made it so we could get it done in a few weeks' time. Because all of a sudden we took a year's worth of work, over a year's worth of work, and put it into a few weeks worth of work over, spread out over a few artists. But that's kind of the numbers you would need to bring, to an art director or to someone, is to be like, look, we're going to spend 6 months making this giant pipeline, but we're going to save this much money and be this much more productive due to taking the time to do this up front. Front load the work, do the work up front, make everything easier in the end. And pretty much that's kind of some of my thought process about this stuff. Take a look at some of those artists, get some inspiration, make some stuff. Sorry that this video wasn't exactly exciting, but it was, again, just designed to show you kind of some of the deciding factors I had to make when making our template, why I went with the template node, which was because this was mainly for props, and I needed to make sure props and characters looked similar, and the best way to do that was not to use, you know, these uber crazy base textures, but to use all of the grunges and dirts to add to those things in the end. Alright, hopefully this is helpful. Comments, questions, other things to add, go ahead and put in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed, and have a good rest of your day.